What if I told you that your confusion, your inner chaos, and even your emotional breakdowns are not signs of failure, but signs that your soul is awakening? Carl Jung didn't just study the mind, he explored the soul. And in the Red Book, he recorded a descent into the depths of his own unconscious that revealed the hidden stages of spiritual transformation. This wasn't just theory. It was lived experience, written in symbols, visions, and deep psychological truths. You see, most people think awakening is a moment of peace. But in Jung's experience, and perhaps in yours, it begins with crisis. The world around you loses meaning. Relationships shift, time bends, and you feel like a stranger in your own body. That's not madness. That's the old self collapsing so that something greater can rise. In this video, you'll discover the 5 stages of spiritual awakening as mapped by Jung in the Red Book. Each stage contains powerful signs, clues that your unconscious is trying to speak. Symbols, emotions, and even dreams that seem chaotic on the surface are actually pointing to your evolution. But be warned, this journey is not for the faint of heart. Jung called it the night sea journey, a voyage through the shadowlands of psyche. But for those who dare, something miraculous waits on the other side, the emergence of the true self. So if you've ever felt like you're losing control, if you've ever felt haunted by a deeper truth you can't explain, if you've had dreams that felt more real than reality, then keep watching, because your soul might be trying to show you the way. Now, let's begin where all great spiritual transformations begin, not with light, but with darkness. Backhand index pointing right comment below if you've ever felt like your life was falling apart just before something bigger awakened in you. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." This wasn't just a poetic statement. It was a foundation of his own transformation. When Jung broke away from Freud, something inside him shattered. What followed was not a retreat into academia, but a courageous plunge into the unknown. Over 6 years, Jung recorded a series of visions, dreams, and symbolic encounters that would become the pages of the Red Book, a spiritual and psychological map unlike anything the world had seen. What Jung experienced was not mental illness. It was a process ancient mystics and shamans would recognize as initiation. In his words, he faced the chaos and mystery of the soul. But instead of running, he listened. He dialogued with the images. He followed the threads of myth, archetype, and inner voice. What he discovered was that the psyche isn't just a collection of memories. It's a living, evolving system connected to something far greater, the self. The self, according to Jung, is the wholeness that lies beyond the ego. It includes both the conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, divine and human. And awakening to it is not a moment. It's a journey, a series of inner deaths and rebirths, a path through symbols, suffering, and sacred union. And the Red Book is the closest we've come to a documented map of that path. In this video, we'll explore the 5 key stages of spiritual awakening according to the Red Book. These are not abstract concepts. They're lived experiences. And chances are you're already in one of them. Each stage brings a set of signs, dreams, emotional shifts, synchronicities, even physical symptoms. But these signs aren't problems. They're messages from the deepest part of your being, calling you home. This is not a linear path. You may move forward and backward. You may get lost. You may feel broken. But as Jung discovered, every descent carries the seed of resurrection. So stay with me as we journey through Jung's map of the soul. You may begin to recognize your own path more clearly and find that you are never alone in it. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt like your dreams are trying to guide you? What symbols keep appearing in your inner world? The first stage of awakening, as Jung experienced and recorded in the Red Book, is not bliss. It's collapse. It's the moment when the ego can no longer hold the weight of your soul. You begin to question everything. Your purpose, your beliefs, your identity. Life loses color. The structures that once gave you stability, career, relationships, even spiritual practices, start to feel hollow. This is not depression. It's the sacred unraveling of who you thought you were. Jung called this a night sea journey, a descent into the unconscious. In the Red Book, he describes falling into a world beneath the surface of the psyche, where reason had no power and symbolic images began to speak. For most people, this is terrifying. But Jung teaches us that this descent is necessary. Why? Because the ego, the mask we wear in society, must break before the self can emerge. You may experience strange dreams, emotional volatility, or a sense that time is bending. You might lose interest in things that once excited you. These are not signs of failure. They are the beginning of spiritual labor. Something deeper is trying to be born. In this abyss, the unconscious begins to stir. Archetypes rise. Repressed memories resurface. And your inner world demands your attention. But most importantly, this stage teaches you to let go, to stop resisting the fall, to trust that there is wisdom in the descent. Carl Jung didn't just write about this. He lived it. He documented visions of death, floods, serpents, and abandoned temples. Each one was a reflection of his soul's breakdown and the beginning of its reconstruction. He showed us that when the outer world falls apart, it's often because the inner world is waking up. So if you feel like everything is falling away, like your life no longer makes sense, know this. You are not going backward. You are being called inward. Pause for a moment and reflect. Have you ever experienced this kind of inner collapse? What did it feel like? Share it below. It might help others recognize that they're not alone in the darkness. Now, as we continue, let's meet the most misunderstood force that arises during awakening, the shadow. Once you descend into the abyss, you don't find light. You find darkness, but not the darkness of evil. It's the darkness of all that's been hidden, repressed, or denied. This is the shadow, one of Jung's most powerful concepts, and it's the second stage of awakening. The shadow is everything you rejected in yourself to survive in the outer world. Your fears, your rage, your wounds, and even your hidden gifts. In the Red Book, Jung's visions became more intense at this stage. He encountered figures that symbolize his own contradictions: old men, serpents, warriors, and wounded children. These weren't hallucinations. They were aspects of his psyche speaking through archetypes. They represented the parts of himself he had never integrated. When you enter this stage, life may trigger you more easily. You may feel shame, guilt, or irrational anger. But these aren't setbacks. These are messengers. The shadow speaks not with words, but with strong emotion. It rises through dreams, relationships, and the stories you tell yourself. And the moment you stop running from it, everything changes. Jung taught that the goal is not to destroy the shadow, but to face it with honesty and compassion. Because within the shadow lie your most powerful energies, your creativity, your intuition, your authentic self. But they are buried under years of judgment and suppression. This is why many people turn back during this stage. It feels like too much. But Jung invites us to stay, to write it down, to dialogue with the images, to ask, what do you try to show me? In the Red Book, he sat with his shadow. He drew it, he spoke to it, and he learned to listen. If you've been having intense dreams, mood swings, or deep emotional flashbacks, it might not be a breakdown. It might be your shadow calling you home. And the more you resist it, the louder it becomes. But when you finally acknowledge it, the healing begins. You start to feel whole, not perfect, but real. Let's pause here. What part of yourself have you been afraid to face? What emotion keeps rising that you usually push away? Leave a comment if something comes to mind. You're not the only one. Next, we'll discover what happens when you survive this confrontation and meet the inner guide waiting within you. After you face your shadow, something unexpected happens. The noise quiets, the fear softens, and in that inner stillness, a new voice emerges. Jung called the wise old man, an archetype of inner guidance, often appearing in dreams or visions as a teacher, healer, or ancient presence. In the Red Book, this figure was named Philemon, and his wisdom changed Jung's entire understanding of the psyche. Philemon didn't just give Jung comforting words. He challenged him. He revealed truths that could only be accessed through surrender, silence, and symbolic thinking. He was not outside Jung. He was Jung, just a deeper layer, a part of the psyche that connects to timeless, transpersonal wisdom. We all carry this guide, but we only hear it after we've made room by confronting our illusions. At this stage of awakening, you may begin to experience more clarity, synchronicities, or sudden insights that feel ancient. You may find yourself drawn to certain books, symbols, or spiritual teachings without knowing why. You might journal and notice a deeper voice speaking through your words. This is not imagination. This is intuition awakened. Jung emphasized that the inner guide is not an authority to be worshipped, but a mirror of your own soul's intelligence. It helps you reconnect with your purpose, not as a fixed role, but as a deeper flow of becoming. You stop seeking answers outside and start trusting the silence within. One powerful practice Jung used was active imagination, entering a meditative state, visualizing a dialogue with a guide, and writing it down. He didn't censor it. He didn't judge it. He just listened, and in doing so, he accessed a wellspring of meaning that modern life rarely allows space for. In your own journey, this stage may feel like emerging from a storm into sacred stillness. But don't expect fireworks. The guide speaks softly, through images, instincts, and dreams. It requires attention, presence, and humility. Try this. Close your eyes tonight and ask your inner guide a question before sleep. Write down whatever comes when you wake. You might be surprised at what rises. Now, let's move into one of the most beautiful and mysterious phases of the awakening, the sacred marriage of opposites within the soul. The fourth stage of awakening in Jung's Red Book is the most alchemical and perhaps the most misunderstood. It's what mystics have called the sacred marriage, or konjunktio, the union of opposites within the psyche. Jung saw this as a symbolic fusion of masculine and feminine, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious. It's not about perfection. It's about wholeness. After the shadow is confronted and the inner guide appears, something begins to shift inside you. You no longer see your darkness as something to destroy. You begin to see how every part of you has a place. The rational and the irrational, the chaos and the order. The soul doesn't want you to pick a side. It wants you to embrace the paradox. In the Red Book, Jung describes visionary scenes of unions between divine feminine and masculine energies. These are not literal relationships. They are internal reconciliations. The anima, feminine soul within men, and the animus, masculine spirit within women, are invited into dialogue. When these polarities come into conscious harmony, the individual begins to radiate a new kind of energy, integrated presence. You might experience this stage through dreams of marriage balance or symbolic encounters with divine figures. You may also feel a deeper sense of internal peace, like something inside you that was always in conflict is now learning to collaborate. Creativity often flourishes here. Your words feel more alive, your emotions more honest. Your body and mind begin to feel like they're finally on the same team. But this stage is delicate. The ego often wants to hijack it, to feel enlightened. But the sacred marriage isn't a destination. It's a dynamic dance. One moment you feel balanced. The next, you're pulled back into old patterns. That's okay. The key is awareness and gentle return. Jung believed that the union of opposites is how the self begins to fully emerge, not as an idea, but as a living experience. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming all of who you are. If you've ever had a dream or moment that felt like both peace and power were present in you, share below. These moments are gold on the spiritual path. Next, let's explore the final stage, the embodiment of your awakening into everyday life. The final stage of awakening, as revealed in the Red Book, is not about escaping the world. It's about returning to it transformed. Jung called this living the symbolic life. It means embodying everything you've learned, felt, and integrated, not just meditation or dreams, but in your daily choices, relationships, and actions. This is where the true self begins to take form in the visible world. After descending into the abyss, facing the shadow, meeting the inner guide, and integrating opposites, a new kind of presence begins to emerge. You no longer live from the ego's fear of being wrong or not enough. You live from the self, a deeper center that is both grounded and connected to something eternal. In this stage, everyday life becomes sacred. A conversation becomes a reflection. A challenge becomes a lesson. Symbols speak to you through music, nature, numbers, or people. You don't just see meaning, you live it. This is not superstition. It's soul perception. Jung believed this stage was the ultimate goal of individuation, the process of becoming whole. But it comes with responsibility. The more conscious you become, the more aware you are of how your presence affects others. You begin to speak with more clarity, act with more intention, and choose with more soul. The Red Book ends not with conclusion, but with continuation. Jung never claimed to be enlightened. He simply showed us what it looks like to walk the path with honesty. He returned to his professional work, his family, and his spiritual studies, not as a man seeking status, but as a soul in service to meaning. This final stage isn't flashy. You won't always feel magical, but you'll feel aligned, and that alignment brings a quiet power, a sense that you are finally living your myth. Not someone else's version of success, but the unique story your soul came here to tell. Here's a question for you. What small action could you take today to honor your inner transformation? Comment it below and make it real. Now let's bring all 5 stages together in one powerful closing message so you can carry this journey forward with intention. You just walked through 5 profound stages of awakening, each drawn from the depths of Carl Jung's Red Book. But here's the truth. Awakening is not a straight line, it's a spiral. You may cycle through these stages many times in your life, and every time the journey deepens. Let's revisit what you've just uncovered. In the descent into the abyss, you learn that collapse is not failure, it's initiation. In encountering the shadow, you faced the parts of yourself you were taught to hide, and began reclaiming your power. In the dialogue with the inner guide, you discover that wisdom is not always external. It often whispers from within. Through the sacred marriage, you witness the beauty of integration, the union of your many selves. And finally, in living the symbolic life, you saw how awakening is not an escape from life, but a full-hearted return to it. Carl Jung gave us a map, but it's not a formula. It's a mirror. The Red Book wasn't meant to be a doctrine. It was a personal mythology that points each of us toward our own. So if you're feeling lost, remember, you're not broken. You're breaking open. If you feel like you're dissolving, perhaps it's because the ego is making space for something deeper, something sacred, something real. This journey is not always beautiful. It's often lonely. But as Jung proved, the soul doesn't seek comfort. It seeks truth. And truth often asks us to sit in darkness before we can recognize the light. But you're not alone. Thousands of others, right now, are moving to their own symbolic death and rebirth. And the more we talk about it, the more we create a collective space where awakening isn't hidden, it's honored. So let me ask you, which of these 5 stages are you in right now? Drop it in the comments below. Let's build a community of awakening, one soul story at a time. If this video spoke to you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with someone who might be walking the same path in silence. You never know who's waiting for permission to awaken, because in the end, the goal is not to become someone else. It's to remember who you've always been.